Welcome to the 98 Central podcast, where we talk about growing a business, working in media, and building a team that we love. I'm Kyle Jewell, social media strategist here at 98C. I forgot my name for a second. And I'm joined today by Jen Blair, our COO. Jen, you and I have been working together for almost 4 years.
I know.
Doesn't that sound crazy?
Yes.
So you actually...
You've even been out of college that long?
No, that's how I'm measuring things like in this phase of life.
Right.
I'm like, oh, that's an undergrad degree.
Oh,
4
man.
years.
Crazy.
So Jen, you actually gave me my start in social media, and we've seen a lot of things change in 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
I think more things have changed in the past 4 years on social than the previous 10, probably.
Yeah.
So wanted to give people kind of an overview of what they can expect in 2022. We're recording this. We're a few months into the year, so we're getting a good glimpse at like some trends and some obstacles that people are going to have to go through as they navigate through what is promising to be a very interesting year on social.
Yes.
So let's run through a few challenges.
Yeah.
Why don't you start?
Okay. So I think the first one that comes to mind is just saturation in general. A couple years ago, people were still wondering, I mean, I guess there's still some of those, but people were really wondering if they needed to be on social media at all. And I'm thinking maybe less typical industries, maybe engineering, maybe some healthcare kind of things. People were really struggling to figure out why they needed to be there. But now it's kind of entry level. If you're not on social media, do you even exist? People used to say that about Google and search engines. If you're not in the first page of Google, do you even exist? But now it's social media. And so everybody's getting out there. Everybody is making their own profiles. And with that, you have to make content. And it's hard to make good content. And it kind of becomes a spray and pray kind of thing. And so it's just the oversaturation of content because you have to put it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's something that when I first started 4 years ago, we were kind of one of the newer into managing social platforms for companies. And like you said, now everyone has it and everyone's like struggling through a content strategy.
Right.
Which we can help with, by the way.
We absolutely can.
Yeah. Another challenge that I'm seeing is like a growing need to make each piece of content like more complex than the next or more complex than the last one you just saw.
Yes.
And I feel like we're still trying to catch up with giving social media teams like the amount of people and resources that they need.
Yes.
Very fortunate here to have like the resources that we have in terms of like our expertise and the equipment. But for one-man teams who are just kind of getting tossed into it.
I don't know how they do it.
It's tough. That's going to be a lot of strain.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of unhappiness. And when you're creating content and you're unhappy, you can tell because as a reader, you can just tell like the mood that someone's in when they're writing or putting something together.
You really can. And the thing about that too, there are some industries where you can post beautiful pictures and get away with it. But now, I mean, if you even open up any kind of newsletter or article about social media right now, it's all about video. And if you're not doing video, you're falling behind. And video takes a lot longer to make and concept out and edit than a picture does. Yeah. And how one-man bands are doing it, I mean, I salute them if they are, because it is a lot of work between writing the posts, planning the content, staying on top of the trends, storyboarding, shooting. Man, it is a lot of work. And that's one thing that we say to a lot of the clients that come in and talk to us is that this is a full-time job. And if there's a team out there, I'm probably going to go on a rant. This might be going off of the challenges, but maybe not. I don't know. But if you are somebody who, they threw social media at you for your job as just like something that you can quickly do on the side, God bless you, because you have your work cut out for you, and it is just a different world. Yeah, and if you need some help like navigating through this, let me or Jen know. We would love to give you some things that we've learned to help you kind of not catch up, but help make your life a little bit easier because I think it's kind of a rising tide raises all ships type of scenario. The better that everyone can do in social, the more that we can all do together. Agreed. So and just personally, the more you can refine your process and the more that you can make things feel a little bit more automated, at least even just in your head, that you know that things are happening and you don't have to think too hard about it, that is just going to save you. So, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, what's another challenge that you can foresee?
So just the changing of generations. It's, Gen Z coming into, I guess, the age of being able to be a consumer on their own. And they just look at things so differently than Gen Xers and millennials, everybody else who has come before them. And I think I know I struggle to understand what Gen Z is interested in. It's just so weird to me. But you know what? We have to adjust and we have to adapt and we have to figure out why the ridiculous things they laugh at and are interested in matter.
Yeah.
And also they tend to hate being advertised at, right? Like Gen Z is so immune and frustrated with typical advertising that you have to really bend your mind to figure out, okay, what I've been doing for years and years at this point is not going to work anymore. And that is a mental shift. That is something else. So, yeah.
And if you haven't listened to our episode about where we broke down what different generations like on social, make sure you check that out. We interviewed our intern Danielle, who is a Gen Zer, our only Gen Zer in the office. She gave us a good insight. I think me and AJ are on the we're on the cutoff.
On the border.
But that was a good insight into, and I feel like it's something for the last 5 years. People have been like, you got to get ready to sell to Gen Z.
Yes.
You got to get ready to sell to Gen Z. And now it's time to sell to Gen Z, and everyone's kind of like, well,
do we really have to?
But I think that's also going to change, the typical platform approach too. Because when I think typical social media marketing platforms, I'm thinking Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, maybe, and Instagram.
And now,
and their consumption habits are much different than millennials and Gen X. Is it Gen X?
The one before,
yeah.
Yep.
Who spent a lot of time on those platforms. So Gen Zers are loving YouTube, their content consumption that can stay on YouTube forever. Snapchat, TikTok.
TikTok for sure. Snapchat, I mean,
it's more of a messaging.
Yeah,
I don't really see it as social, but
I've never seen that necessarily, and maybe I just haven't experienced the right clients that need it. I feel like maybe universities would be great with Snapchat, but I think that there's a very specific place for Snapchat.
Yeah,
so maybe that's why it throws me off.
It seems like media, different media outlets. That seems like a good place to them because it's conversation, celebrity, whatever. By the way, if you have tips, anyone listening has tips on Snapchat, I would actually love to. We don't have any clients that use Snapchat, like Jen just said, but I would love to learn a little bit more about it so that we're ahead of the curve when we get there. And I think that those platforms that Gen Z spends most of their time on is really indicative of the way that they consume their media. And you can't talk to them. You have to talk with them. You have to be on their level. You can't sell to them. You have to show it's kind of like going back to selling 101. You have to show the problem, the solution in a way that doesn't feel like selling.
Yeah. And so one that comes to mind on TikTok that kind of blows my mind a little bit is Frontier Airlines. Which, if you think about it, Frontier is a great thing for Gen Zers because it's cheap.
Yeah.
And,
you get
they
to fly
want
the
to travel.
Plane. There's a discount.
Oh, wow. I'm never flying Frontier. Sorry, Frontier. But yeah, so they do, they put faces on their planes. I think that, or is it that one?
I think you're right, yeah.
And, it's just, I guess it's kind of like Wendy's Twitter. So is Wendy's Twitter and that kind of weird voice, or Denny's or whoever did it, is that crazy zany voice the new adaptation in marketing for TikTok? I don't know.
There's a good Duolingo.
Yes, Pittsburgh company.
I think I talked to AJ and Danielle about this too.
Yes.
When we talked about getting started on TikTok, Duolingo is... I think they just threw the keys of the LinkedIn account at of the TikTok account at an intern and was like, okay, whatever there's a costume,
and
go crazy.
And now it's
and that was
such a huge deal.
But that was the best thing they could have done because it was a Gen Zer or younger millennial talking to. So she just made what she would like to see, and that was a master stroke.
Yes,
so,
that was so interesting.
Another challenge that I can see is. It goes a little bit along with the the one-man team, but there's it's the pressure of coming up with something original.
Yes.
That's earth-shattering, that's viral every time, and that's really not.
It's not realistic.
What we do. We can't do that.
No.
We can't spend all of our time trying to make the next post go viral. And I think there's a lot of, but you still have to find the balance between not trying to go viral and not repurposing other content.
Yes.
And like falling into what I call like the challenge trap. Which is I'm just going to talk about what's hot on whatever social network and not actually contribute anything to my followers, my customers' lives.
But on that note too, I think going viral is completely overrated. Completely overrated. Yeah. And, think about, especially I'm thinking service-based businesses that we work with that might have more of a local audience. If you go viral and you're getting 1 million views on something, and how many of those people are relevant to you? And it can be a blip and it's gone, and then you're back kind of to your normal pace.
I think it could cause more damage, especially if you go viral for something that's not important to your business. Maybe it's not aligned with your core values or your messaging.
Or
and
what
now
you have to do.
Yeah, and then now you have to do that work now on the back end to like undo this perception that you've created because of one viral moment.
Yeah, and the whole point is, people want to see the same kind of stuff over and over again. And if you go viral in that one thing and you hated doing it, we had a client who that happened to them, and they found themselves under a lot of pressure to kind of perform and do things for an audience that would never be their customers, that made them uncomfortable, and they were miserable about it. And like, that is just no way to have to, I mean, what's the payoff?
Yeah. And the data that we had to present to them too, after we were shifting their perception, their messaging to something that was much more aligned with who they wanted to be on social. But then you have to go explain to them that, hey, you are losing tens of thousands of followers a month, but it's actually a good thing because we're getting rid of the people who don't want to see you as you currently are, as you truly are.
Right.
But it's such a hard sell for a client to be like, hey, you're losing followers. That's a good thing.
But on that note, look how much his engagement
it went up. It went up through the roof. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Another challenge in 2022, Jen.
So data privacy. This is one. Okay, I don't care about data privacy at all. Take all my data, sell me all the things. I do nothing, untoward enough hours.
Make it easier for me to buy something. Okay, fine. Twist my arm.
Stalk me? Cool, fine. Have fun with that. You're going to get bored so quick. So I don't know. What do you think about that one?
I think it's more, it's less because you and I like work in that space. So we kind of understand the benefit of that.
Yeah.
I think the challenge with data privacy is more, I don't want to make it seem like everyone else like doesn't get it. But it's more like the perception that a company's like using your data improperly, and there are examples of this happening. But it couldn't just become a trend for people to, I don't know, they read an article that's potentially misleading and they just like cut off their accounts, and then our audience drops because people have decided that they don't want their data to be used by whatever entity that they're currently on. I think that's a big issue.
Yeah.
And then there's Google too. It always seems like Google's going through issues with data privacy, and they're kind of like pulling back on the data that they collect, and the way that people like opt into giving their data. So that could affect how how businesses and agencies can calculate ROI.
Right.
So I think that's a big challenge.
And just show that effectiveness. And I don't know. It's so interesting though too, because like, they put these things in front of you that you have to agree to or read. And I think that there's so much confusion. And of course you get lawyers involved and like, what does this need to say in order to kind of CYA and all of that. And so it just leads to so much confusion and unclarity.
Right.
And so I think that might be part of what I feel too. And a lot of this is, you have, the doom and gloomers on one side and just, people like me in the middle and whatever else. And so it's just such an interesting thing. And I guess that's the big challenge is like, how do you understand what's going on and what matters, and how does that impact your clients, and how does that impact legal disclaimers on your website? Yeah. There's so much that you have to think about in terms of what's the practical visible results. Yeah.
I think that kind of leads into the last challenge that I had prepared for us, which is like current events and trends in consumption. So we were just talking about data privacy. It reminds me of how I think it was 2021, might have been 2020 when Mark Zuckerberg had to testify in front of Congress
and
about
he just confused everyone.
Yeah, and he didn't make anything clear for anyone who uses his product.
And of course, there was so many like OK Boomer things that came out of that.
Yeah.
So it was just chaos. It was just so much chaos. And
but that sort of thing, that kind of event, that can paint a narrative or a picture of how media is used and how data is used. But other events too. I mean, this by the time we're recording this, there's geopolitical issues in Ukraine right now. Russia's invaded Ukraine. That takes. First of all, it is its own issue on the side.
We talk about that so much. Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's also what it means on social, which is
blows my mind.
And I know it's not the most important thing in the world or in this situation, but there's less room on people's social feeds for like brand and marketing content because there's so much other like event messaging going on.
Right. And I mean, gosh, you could see the same thing with the pandemic. Look what happened in March of 2020, and everybody was making COVID-19 feeds, and that was all the news. You turn on your TV, that was all the news. And I mean, I would say that what's going on in Ukraine right now is not quite as saturated, I guess, as what the pandemic was, but it's still there. And but the thing that just blows my mind about that is how close it takes you to what's happening on the front lines.
It's freaky. It's been an interesting look at like history in real time and how like our media consumption and history, like real events, have overlapped. I don't think we've seen this on this stage before.
And I have a history degree, so this is just like making my brain just like, how is this going to be documented?
Yeah.
How are people going to think about this? Like, what happens? I don't know. Social media is still going to be here in 100 years? Who knows?
Right.
What will it be? And how will this be
and
seen?
In terms of like social performance, brands can't really compete with the level of conversation that these events drive. And the passion. So there's always the passion on both sides, whatever positive or negative. Brands can't really elicit that if they're true to their core values and their messaging.
Right.
But then you get into a trap too where you're like, oh, we have to get our numbers up. Mm-hmm. We have to talk about this thing.
Yes. Or hashtag prayers for Ukraine and that kind of thing. And it's like, don't put that on your post if it's completely irrelevant.
If it's not in your core values, you can't like compromise what you've decided your brand is just to become a part of this conversation for numbers.
Right. So basically the challenge is staying focused when the world is a bit of a shambles.
Yeah.
So
and it is tough. Yeah. I mean, that's as social media marketers through the pandemic. Yeah. I mean, I'll share this story.
PTSD.
I know.
Sorry.
Well, I'll share this story about. It's kind of similar to the current events, and I guess it was more like. So we were working with a financial institution. PPP loans were announced. A day before the portal opened for this client.
April 4th.
Yep, April 4th.
2020.
15 hours at the computer. It was April 4th, Saturday, 2020.
My husband kept bringing me food.
Yep, I was out in my back porch. I just did not want to. Yeah.
You got the sunshine.
Yeah, I needed something positive. But it was hard to be focused on our work when so much was happening, and then these PPP loans are announced, and we're trying to help these small businesses get money that they desperately need, and they don't understand this process. Yeah. And then you and I have to kind of pretend to be bankers and drive them through this application
Meanwhile,
process.
Just like talking to the chaotic cluster of bankers on the other side through like one liaison. Right. Man, that was just...
That was nuts. It's focus. Focus is, but it's the hardest. It was the hardest thing. It would have been so easy but I think social media marketers who are like deep into it nowadays understand that they have to be like they are the customer the customer service rep.
Yes,
they're the banker. Like in that situation, the customer service, we're bankers. We're kind of advisors too. I mean,
and that goes to, I think that might be the biggest challenge. I think that we are making strides to overcoming it, but in so many ways, social media is not necessarily seen as a weighty profession or a profession of merit.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like social media touches everything. And like you just said, you have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to be a graphic designer. You have to be a video producer. You have to be able to storyboard. You have to be a writer. You have to be a data analyst. You have to know how to make that data work. You have to touch literally every single piece of the marketing puzzle. And it's about time that people recognize that, because I think people in social media, they're the ones who are going to be heading marketing departments. They're going to be the ones that are in charge. They're going to be they're going to be running the show because they know it all.
Yeah.
They have to know it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's to help overcome the challenge. If you're a company or a manager who oversees the social department, get them the resources. When they
Fight
bring
for
an
them.
issue up to you, please listen, because they're not trying to like take the easy way out. They're being honest.
They're burnt out.
They're burnt out. And and if you lose your social media team, you won't realize how big of an impact that has on your business performance until after they're gone.
Well, so we were just in a client meeting the other day, and I guess they have somebody on their team that is out on maternity leave, and she's the one who has run their social media, and they have 5 people now trying to do what this one person did, and they are just lost.
Yeah.
And they're like, how do you do this every day?
It's crazy.
It's kind of hard.
Yeah. Well, it's getting kind of thrown into the social media deep end. It was such a good way to learn about like real world marketing and advertising, though, because you do touch everything. And you kind of, as me, like I couldn't decide out of college which area I wanted to go to.
Yep.
I could not have picked a better realm to go into because it literally is everything. There's finance if you're running, if you're running ads. There's almost like new business pitch. Like if you're going and asking for more resources or I need more time to do this, you have to go pitch that to your supervisor, your manager. Yeah, the writing, the directing,
everything,
storyboarding. Client communications. So you're kind of an account executive at times too.
You are.
It's nuts.
You are.
So I'm sure that there are so many more challenges on social media.
Yeah.
But those are just the ones that kind of stood out to us, and those were the ones that you probably won't find on like a social media blog.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like. But I'd love to hear from anyone who's listening or watching. What are some challenges that you're seeing in your organization as it pertains to social media? And let's have a little discussion about it. Sweet. So Jen, what are you digging this week?
This is really lame. I'm digging kipping pull-ups.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm working on them.
Is that the like swinging?
Yes, you have to swing yourself up, and yes. It's like I'm afraid of smacking my face on the bar, which is probably, like, now that I'm thinking about it, not really that much of a concern. But I don't know. It's really hard. I have never been an athlete in my life. Like, I taught myself how to lift and like read a book, right? I read a book and taught myself how to lift. And that doesn't happen anymore. People just go on YouTube or whatever, or go to a gym. So I'm like, the fact that I'm able to kind of like, I don't know, do a body weight thing, that's kind of a big deal. So I don't know. Digging that. How about you? I don't want to do it. I don't want to try that. Okay.
I like watch the videos and I'm like, how does that work and not hurt the entire way?
It hurts. My shoulder is like falling off, but it's fine.
That seems healthy. What am I digging? I'm digging just because the first thing that popped in my head. We got an air fryer a few months ago and I started making air fried tofu. Plant-based.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Like marinate it in a little like some teriyaki.
Yeah.
Good.
Nice. I fell victim to the air fryer during the pandemic. Got that. I haven't used mine in a little bit, but I really like, it's actually great. I should use it more because it makes it so much easier to just get something out quick.
Yeah. And I'm sure it is healthier. I don't know exactly,
it's a
but
convection oven.
I
It's
feel
literally,
healthier.
they've duped us all. It's a convection oven.
Yeah. Well, why do we even need real ovens anymore? Just give me a bigger air fryer. Cool.
Anyway.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Again, we are 98 Central. We are a video production company located in Greenville, South Carolina. If you want to learn more about us, head to 98c.org. You can find us on social. We're on all the regular socials. We're on Twitter. Not very active. We're working on it. Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And you can catch some of our work on YouTube.
Yeah. And then before you walk away, make sure that you rate and review our show if you've liked it, because that helps us a lot. And we'd love to see what you think about it. So thanks.
Sweet. Bye. The worst is like getting yourself up to the and like flipping the
hitting
switch.
that starting line.
It's the worst part. It's like transitioning. Oh god, I hate it. Okay.
And now
I'm jumping in.